Welcome to the Happy Lawyer Project. I'm your host, Akoma Moronu, and I created this show to help lawyers find happiness in life with a law degree. Together with my guests, we provide the knowledge, skills, insight, and inspiration you need to find you're happy. So I'm back, guys, and I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone for your kind words while I was on the mend. As those of you who were listening to last week's episode know, I was feeling really under the weather after the really busy couple of days that I had, and I had completely lost my voice. So my lovely husband stepped in and did the intro for me, and I really hope you guys enjoyed that episode. So I also know that I owe you guys a ton of Money Book Club updates, and I have to admit that I have really been struggling with this month's book, which is The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money. And so I suspect that if I'm struggling, that there's those of you out there who are struggling as well. But I am going to get through this book. I'm going to put together my thoughts. And so if you have any questions, concerns, issues that came up, I would love to share them on the show. So just send them my way. You can DM me, you can email me, you can leave me a voicemail on the website. So we will wrap up this month's book. And I'm happy to announce that I have picked the next book for the Money Book Club, which I'm really very excited about, and I've been looking forward to reading for so long. So I'm really excited to read it with you guys. And the book is called Your Money or Your Life by Vicky Robin. So for those of you who are interested in possibly following along, you can go ahead and pick up that book and get started reading, and you'll have the next kind of 30 to 45 days to get through it and send me your questions, and we can talk about it on Instagram. Now on to this week's episode. I am so thrilled to finally have been able to connect with today's guest. Her name is Allison Ford, and she's a practicing attorney who has reignited her passion for art and now runs a successful side hustle as an artist. You can find her work over at helloallisonart.com. And on today's show, we chat about how she found her way back to art, how she created space in her life to pursue this creative passion, and why she ultimately decided to turn that passion project into a profitable business. As most of you probably know, when this episode comes out, I will actually be on a plane to Ecuador. So I hope that after you enjoy this episode, you'll head over to Instagram and follow me along on a really exciting adventure to Ecuador, to visit the Galapagos Islands and play around in the cloud forest. It's going to be super duper fun, and I'm really excited to share that part of my life with you guys as well. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. I hope to see you on Instagram. We'll be in touch soon. Welcome back to the Happy Lawyer Project, lawyers. I hope everybody's having a fantastic day, because I am, because today I get to interview Allison Ford. Allison, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you doing? Thanks for having me.
I am so well, and I'm so happy you're here. I've been waiting to connect with you for so long. But before we start, I would love if you could just share a brief description of who you are and what it is that you do.
Yes, so I am a practicing lawyer, and I am a mother of 2 boys. I'm a wife, and I'm also an artist. I am an abstract and mixed media painter.
I absolutely love your Instagram, which is how I first found you. So I'm really excited to dive into the art portion of the show. But before we go there, let's start with the law portion. Can you tell us a little about your legal journey? What drew you to the law?
Sure. So I think my journey to the law would begin in college. I had an opportunity to take some classes, and we spent some time learning about deliberation, democracy, civic engagement, mediation, and those concepts were really intriguing to me. I was very much interested in how people solve problems in sort of a different way, how people solve problems through communication and getting around a table and dialoguing together. And so that was really what interested me in law school. I wasn't so much interested in the courtroom aspect of it, even though that's what people kind of see at first. I was more so interested in sort of a creative way to solve problems and the concept of deliberation. So that drew me to law school. And I mean, I did well in law school. I don't think it didn't come easy at first. I kind of took a while to sort of figure out law school, if that makes sense. But what I really did enjoy about law school was the writing aspect of it. And so once I got the chance to do more writing, it really started resonating with me. And so from law school, I went to a big law firm and started practicing there for a couple years. And I took an unconventional path and clerked after I'd started practicing for a while. So my first post big law job was clerking. And then I clerked for a couple of years. That was about 3 years. And then I went back to the law firm again. And that's kind of ties into sort of my art journey as well. And then went back to clerking. So it's been an interesting path. So right now I'm still a law clerk.
That's so interesting. I actually was at a firm where they were very big on sending junior associates to clerkship. So that's not that uncommon to me. And, they would go in and come out of clerking because it helped build relationships with the judges in the area. And so they saw that as a really good opportunity to both get training for the associates and to grow their network within the legal community. Was your firm really supportive of this, or was this something you came up with?
They were very supportive of it. It was something that I came up with, or at least the opportunity presented itself, but they were very supportive, and I had a place. I had enough of a relationship with the firm that when I came back from my clerkship, I went back into the firm, and I was far enough along in my career that I was very sensitive to the timing of that to sort of stay on the partnership track, so to speak. But they were very supportive, and I had a great experience with both clerking and working at the firm in that regard.
Could you, for people who are interested in doing something like this, could you share just a tiny bit about kind of how, you found this opportunity and presented it to the firm, like how that worked, the logistics of it?
Well, I mean, they can't necessarily hold a space for you. And I clerked for 3 years. So that was a significant period of time. And I didn't necessarily get my full, it depends on what firm, but the firms usually will give maybe max 2 years of clerkship credit. So it was a conscious decision, but I did stay in touch with the team that I was on. And we were just kind of left it flexible in terms of how long it would be and what it would look like when I got back. But I thought the key was for me to be sensitive to the timing of that and to stay in touch with the people at my firm and let them know that I would be interested in returning, but also exploring other options. So I kind of left things open in that regard as well.
I love that. I really appreciate that you kind of took the initiative, not just to do it, but to kind of maintain the relationship. I think sometimes everything is so black and white. Like if there isn't an opportunity, they just don't create the opportunity. And then once they create the opportunity, they don't leave the door open. They think they've burnt the bridge and that they have to just walk out the door. Or they, walk out the door and they say they'll maintain the relationship, but then because the firm doesn't reach out, they don't reach out, and the firm's not going to. It's not right. The firm's responsibility to keep you on the line if it's something you're interested in. So I think that that's really great to hear and to really see an example of how to do it in a really productive way. But you also mentioned that this tied into your art journey. Could you explain how?
Sure. So in between, I wrapped up sort of the first clerkship, and I should say the reason why it was such a longer period of time is because I was clerking for a new judge. And so that was sort of a unique experience in and of itself because it kind of helped her kind of get her chambers up and running. But I had that sort of 3.5 year period of time. And then it was about time to start heading back to the firm. And my husband said to me, right when my clerkship was wrapping up, he said, you should really think about taking some time off because you kind of know what you're getting ready to go back into, and you're not going to really have that much, just sit down free time, think about what you want to do. And, I'd never really had any time where I didn't do anything. I always did something. So that was just sort of a gift to me in that regard. And I said what I really wanted to do was paint. I had really no clue how to go about doing that, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I guess I would preface that by saying I was always interested in the arts and sort of a creative pursuit, but I didn't really have a good idea of how to go about that or sort of where to start. And it was kind of a fear thing for me. I guess I would say in college, my roommates was a studio art major, and there was plenty of times when I went to the studio with her because I was just interested in painting, but I was afraid to. I guess partly because I was intimidated by her and how good she was, and then I didn't want to make a bad grade in painting. That was like the one thing I just didn't know how to do. So I didn't do it. I took sculpture because I loved being in the studio. I took printmaking because I wanted to be in the studio, but I shied away from the painting class. And I didn't really make any time to paint afterwards. First part of my legal career, I didn't either. And so I would take a painting class here and there, but it didn't really click for me. And when I say painting class, maybe bring your own snacks and your own beverages, and we're going to paint this beach scene or something. I mean, I did that, and I did some things that were a little bit more substantive with some other artists, but nothing really clicked for me. So during this sort of, I called it, my sabbatical, there was a class that happened to line up at a creative arts center in my hometown. And so I signed up for that class, and it was 6 weeks, and it met once a week for 3 hours in the morning. And it was with some really experienced painters, I would say. And they were really there to critique each other and to just experience painting with each other, but they kind of knew what they were doing. And I did not know what I was doing.
I'm like getting, like, my palms are sweating. There's nothing that, like, when you start talking about people critiquing your art, I get real anxious.
I didn't have any supplies. I looked at the supply list, and it was like real professional paint and stuff. I didn't have any of that. So, I didn't want to even buy the supplies. But I did. And I think the instructor knew that I didn't really know what I was doing. And another student didn't really know what she was doing. And so she took some time with us to kind of talk to us about color theory, and then do it sort of in a very hands-on way with a collage technique, and actually learning how to mix colors. And that was when things started to click for me. It really was her approach to color theory and sort of the hands-on that really got me thinking that this is something I can do if I keep working at it. And I get it. I'm not saying that in a way that like, oh, I'm like Picasso here, but it became something that I felt like I could do, and that I wanted to do.
How long did that take for that click? Did she do that explanation the first night of the class and it was like, okay, it's on? Or did that take some time for you to really build up to that moment?
Well, it took the entire 6-week time period and beyond, way beyond, and continuing. So, but it was just, to me, it was like something that I missed, which was, how do I actually create a composition? I need to understand how to mix colors and how to apply paint on canvas. And that's what I was sort of missing.
Yeah. That's very interesting that you kind of dove right into something very advanced. And I just want to talk through kind of how you, for someone who had fear of being judged in college, going through a class with your friend, or, not doing well in painting, to suddenly be in this environment. Why at that time in your life do you think you stuck with it? Like, why didn't you walk to that class, see the list of supplies and say, nope, not for me?
Well, I didn't have anything to lose. It was just the right time and right opportunity. And, I didn't know those people. Like, they were all so supportive. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to help. And, they were just glad I was there. It was just like a safe safe space at that point. There really wasn't anybody there to judge me or to have an opinion. I mean, they didn't know who I was, and that was kind of a neat place to be. So I just at that point committed to sticking with it because I realized it was something that I loved, but there was just really no pressure there. I think that's the key.
And how long was this sabbatical? Was it the entire 6-week period? Was it longer than the 6-week period? How long did you give yourself to kind of your husband? So it's so great that he encouraged you to take that time, because you maybe wouldn't have done it without that kind of
right.
It's sometimes we need the ones we love to tell us what we need, what we could use for ourselves. How long did you take, and kind of how did that all fit together?
It was about 2 months. So after that course was over, I still continued to paint during that time and continued to paint when I went back to work also, because at that point I was pretty committed to keeping up with it. Obviously, different schedule, but that was kind of what it took for me to say, this is what I wanted to do. Like, I've always tried to do something creative, but nothing really kind of stuck with me. So like I tried at one point to do calligraphy.
Oh my gosh, me too.
I think everyone's tried calligraphy. It did not stick.
So I love calligraphy, and I don't know why. It's not quite right for me, but I always wish I had more patience for it.
I wish I did too, but I think you're right. The patience, I don't have that.
Yep. So you continue to paint, you go back to work, you're still painting, you are diving back into big law at this point and making time to paint.
I am.
So I think the question that I have, and the struggle that most people I think have who are in big law, is it's really hard to turn your brain off, because it feels like you're constantly churning about work. And it feels like painting must be such a different headspace. And how did you navigate that? And how did you create time and space in your life to continue painting?
That's a great question. So the time and space, really, it was affected by big law, but it was also affected by, family as well. And it still is.
And so at this point, had you had your son, or how old is he?
Okay, let me think. I had one son.
Okay.
I had one son at this point. So I still do, but at that point in particular, I did most of my painting on the weekends and usually at night. And that was just sort of a treat to myself. I mean, obviously I got all my work done, but I found that I needed that space. And I felt like I, owed it to myself to try to make some time every once in a while. It's not an everyday thing, still not an everyday thing, but it's a pretty frequent thing. So to me, it was just as simple as just saying, yep, this is what I'm going to do.
And practically speaking, is it something you put on a schedule? Like, do you know when you're going to paint so that you can kind of create the space? Or how do you prioritize it and make sure it happens?
I don't have a schedule per se, outside of just sort of how I prioritize my day, just generally speaking. So I know when I put my children to bed that I will do a couple of things to get ready for the next day. And then I may have an hour, maybe an hour and a half to paint that night. And so I do that. And then that's it. Time to start transitioning to the next thing, getting ready for the next day. And so that's kind of how I do that. I do a lot on Friday nights, sometimes Saturday nights, but it's small blocks of time usually. And that's one of the things that I realize is sort of the key for at least my painting practice, is to realize that you don't have to have this elaborate studio. You don't have to have, huge, huge blocks of time to do your creative practice. Even if it's just 30 minutes, that's better than nothing. And that will help me come to the next day with a clear head and feeling a bit more invigorated and personally happy because I've done something that's important to me.
And did it take time for you to get good at those transitions, or is it something that kind of came naturally to you? Because I think it's easy to say, it only takes half an hour, but if you're not feeling inspired in that half an hour, do you just paint and whatever comes out, what comes out, and the next day you just come back to the canvas and go again? Or if you're not feeling it that day, do you just wait until you're feeling more in the creative spirit?
I like to wait till I'm in the creative spirit, but I also don't want to just wait until I'm always in the creative spirit, because sometimes you can get in the creative spirit just by being, at least for me, being around my materials, and I can get there. But something that's been very helpful to me is taking a childlike approach to painting. And I say that, I have 2 small children, and they just get in there and do stuff. Like, if you ever watch children painting, like you can't tell them their artwork isn't good. Like, they're ready to get in there and do it, and they think their work is good. So I try to take a similar approach. Just get in there and get going. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to get done in one block of time, although like the other part of me is like, oh, let's get this finished. But maybe I just pick up a smaller project and realize that coming back to it the next day with fresh eyes will probably be the best thing for me to do. So I think my practice has evolved around the schedule that I inherently have as a practicing attorney and a mother. So I may start on something, put some clothes in the dryer, let some paint dry a little bit, and then come back to it. And then I may put that down for the day and come back to it to the next day. And then I might get a little bit more finished. Or if something's not really working out at all, I may put it in a closet and not look at it again for, 2 months. It just depends.
So let's talk a little about art as a business, because I think that's really an interesting component of your story, is that at some point you decided that you wanted to potentially sell your art. How did you come to that decision? Because I think there's people who have a lot of mixed feelings about selling their art. And how much preparation and thought went into it? And was it very much like a yes, I'm ready kind of thing? Or was it I'll just put it out there and see what happens? Or were you really talking to a lot of people to determine if it was the right time and if you were ready? What was that transition like for you, and why did you decide that it was something you wanted to do?
Yeah, so it was really about the time that I was kind of on my sabbatical, so to speak, that I even first got on social media and started posting my art. But it was more so of like, this is my art journey. I'm just trying to see what I'm doing here. I originally started doing things more, I guess I would call it more nursery art. I thought it was going to be, I guess I was sort of thinking about having young children and room decor for young children. It was not anything like what I'm doing now, which is more abstract, I think, definitely more mature. I like to paint now for people's spaces and for their homes, but I really was just in the beginning just trying to catalog my journey. And then people started asking, well, is this for sale? And I was like, well, sure. I don't really even know I don't know what to do about that. And so that initial part was hard. It's just like making sure that you're clear with your pricing and sizes. I mean, things that are intuitive, but when people are looking at something online or like a picture on Instagram and you're sending them an invoice, and there's just so many logistics there that I had no clue of anything about how to ship a painting, didn't know anything about that either. So it just sort of evolved from a initial just putting my art out there with really no expectations, and really wasn't wasn't anything like where I am now. But I like to honor that space. I'm not ashamed of that space because that to me, I'm still on a journey, and that's a part of it. It's just the part where you just don't know where you're going or anything about what you're going to do.
To some lawyers, that sounds terrifying. I think that's very fair. How did you decide on things like pricing? I think that when it comes to art, that can be very, that can run the gamut. And I think artists, well, we don't need my opinion on how artists price their work. I'd love your opinion. No, I often find that I like to spend money on art that I love, you know what I mean? That I want to own. And for me, it's like an investment in magic. It's something that really lights my heart up. And I would rather spend a lot of money, what to me seems like a lot of money, on one beautiful thing than kind of 5 prints from Target that are not that meaningful. But for some people, they're like, that whole, my kid could paint that. Why would I spend $300 on it? And in my mind, I'm like, no, your kid couldn't paint that, but fine, then put up your kid's painting on your wall. Like no one's asking you to spend the money. So did you was it for you very easy to know what price range you felt you sat at, or did you go kind of ask questions? Like how do you do that type of research?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That pricing has evolved, but to be perfectly honest, back to my husband again.
It's good to have a partner.
I was always asking him, well, what do you think about this? How much somebody wants to buy this? I don't know how much it should be. And we would go through this whole back and forth all the time. And finally he said, look, you've got to he's an engineer. He's like, you got to get a structure here. And he made me this spreadsheet.
Yes. Yes. Engineer in the house.
And I mean, we talked about together what needed to be on the spreadsheet, but we talked about materials cost. And so anyway, we've come to sort of I did some research on how to price work. I mean, you can do like a square price by square inch. And so we kind of did sort of a price by square inch looking at materials. But to be honest, I'll fluctuate within that. It's not necessarily perfect because people typically think, oh, this is a small painting, I should pay a small price. Sometimes it actually takes me more time and more effort to do a small painting than it does a large painting. So it doesn't work perfectly, but that was helpful for me. And I've since become more confident in my pricing. I think about my time, and also as a professional as well. I know it's not the same type of skill, but I know that my time is worth something. And so I don't want to shortchange my time in this venture either. Like my time is worth even more to me now because this is not I don't paint full time. So when I get to do that, and when I do that, and when I do a commission or when I'm working on a project, I'm still thinking about the value of my time and my effort in there and my heart in there. And so, I mean, there's tons of good articles and blogs about pricing. For me, it was just something where I had to start with a number because it was hard to pull something out of the sky, and then just continue to grow in my confidence, but still remain at a price point that I thought is key to my target audience, if that makes sense.
Yep. No, that's fantastic. And I should have assumed there's a million blogs and calculators and versions of calculators and spreadsheets, but it's such a foreign world to me. So it's so great to have you break it down for us here. So for the lawyers out there who have a creative pursuit or who have a creative side that they've kind of let wither on the vine because of being a lawyer and law school and all the things that come with that, do you have a tip for them if they want to tap back into that? Is there one thing that they could do today to really launch them back into that creative side of their lives?
Yeah, I think the best thing, I get this type of question a lot, or some variation of it, not even just from lawyers, but I think the best thing to do is just start. go back and pick up your old materials, go to an art store, pick up new materials, get a sketchbook. I think it's just key to start, because otherwise there'll be 1.5 million reasons that would make you not want to start if you just didn't start. There's always going to be the push-pull of life. And if it's something that you want to do, set aside a little bit of time to start over again and see how it feels. And if it doesn't feel right anymore, maybe pick up something else. I mean, that's kind of my approach. It's once you find that thing that you're passionate about, then you won't have a hard time making the time for it. It might not be all the time, but you'll figure out a way to bring that back into life. So I don't know, just start.
I love that advice. I mean, I'm so about just taking action towards the thing you want. As lawyers, we can tend to be in our heads a lot. And sometimes, especially when you're talking about creativity, that's often in the body and it's a doing, whether it's dance or art or writing, you just have to do it. You're not going to intellectually get better just by thinking about it and studying it. You have to physically go out and do the thing.
Right. You got to do the thing and then just see where the thing leads. Because, I mean, I had no idea where my thing was going to lead. Yep. And so it's interesting now. I spend a good bit of my sort of after the kids go to bedtime doing more business related things.
That's so interesting. Yeah. And I love that you said you didn't know where it was going to lead, because you don't have to know.
Exactly.
That's the second part, is that people not only think that if they read enough books about writing, that when they start writing, they'll be a better writer and it will help them predict where their writing will take them. And if they're so overthinking the whole art and the creative part, and you sometimes need to just let go and let this be different from the law, right?
Yes.
From work.
Yeah, literally, it's the same, part of it's the same to me, and that it's sort of a creative problem-solving exercise. But it's so useful to kind of turn that off and take off the pressure of, I got to get this done, it's got to be right, blah, 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 blah. And just literally letting your brain have some time to explore and see where it goes.
Thank you so much for that. And we are going to transition into the second segment of the show now, which I like to call the Happiness Hot Seat. And so this is a round of 5 quick fire questions that I'm going to present to you, and just off the top of your head, 1 or 2 sentences to let us know what you think of these topics. Are you ready?
I think so.
I know it's not like a hot seat. It's not, these aren't scary questions. So
the seat's hot. Hot.
All right. So now I have pressure on me. All right. So number 1, how do you deal with failure or disappointment?
So usually I need my 5 or 10 minutes, maybe longer, but I give myself a few minutes to sort of mourn, process, be sad, whatever emotion is needed. And then it's time to move on. So I give myself some processing time, and then I really do try to put it behind me.
Fantastic. Number 2, what is a habit or strategy that you use that helps you prioritize your own happiness?
Giving myself some space. Sometimes it's hard being around people all the time, and I am very much an introvert, so I give myself some quiet time every day.
Love that. Number 3, can you describe a mindset shift that changed your life?
Yes, several, but I think something that's really changed my life is realizing that half the stuff that we stress about isn't going to matter in X amount of years, 5 years, 10 years. It won't matter. And so realizing that I don't have to carry all of that with me to the next day has taken a lot of pressure off.
I love that. I feel the same way. It took me a while to get to that one, but that was a big one for me, was realizing it doesn't really matter. And that worrying about it doesn't actually do anything, even if it did matter. So
Yeah. That ties to my number one, which is giving myself the 5 to 10 minutes to mourn,
Yep.
and then we're moving on.
Exactly. Number 4, can you name a book that has inspired your journey?
Yeah, so I actually don't read a whole lot, but there have been a couple books that have been very meaningful to me. One is Cultivate by Laura Casey, and it has taken on some new meaning for me because I just came back from the Making Things Happen conference.
Yep.
A couple days ago, and just realizing how important it is to take time to really nurture and cultivate the things that are important to us has been eye-opening. So that book is one that I've read cover to cover and keep near me, even if I just am looking at the colors on the front page to just make me feel light and inspired.
I often wish I was a creative because I feel like the creative conferences are so life-giving, but then I'm like, I would show up and they'd be like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a lawyer. And not even like a fun lawyer at like, I'm not like a lawyer at like, I don't know, somewhere creative whose name I can't even think of. I'm a corporate finance lawyer at like an aviation company. No one cares about that at like some artsy conference where everybody dresses beautifully.
No, this is very like just a life conference. So I don't know. I feel that that's for everybody.
Well, don't think it doesn't keep me from going. I go to these things. I just wish I was more of a creative. So I felt.
Yeah, no, I hear that. We're all like just trying to find our place in the world, right?
Ain't that the truth? Number 5, what do you think separates happy lawyers from lawyers who struggle to find happiness in life with a law degree?
So I think that finding happiness in the law is a choice, and appreciating and finding a way to be happy where you are, realizing that we're on a journey. You don't necessarily have to stay there, but be appreciative of where you are at the time and choose to be happy where you are at the time will go far. Yeah,
Amen.
it's a choice. It's a choice.
No, I say it all the time, so I couldn't agree with you more. All right. Well, we are all done with the substantive portion of the show. I have one last question for you, which is a question from a listener. And this is a question I received on Instagram today. And for those of you out there who follow me on Instagram, I usually give you an opportunity in my stories to ask questions to my guest. So if you're not following me, you should at the Happy Lawyer Project. And today's question comes from Melissa. And she says, how did you decide, or how do you decide how much money to invest in your creative pursuit? She says she started a bunch of different things and she feels like she buys all the supplies and then realizes it's not for her. She doesn't know if she should try it for longer or if she should just dump it and try something new. Do you have any thoughts about the money behind investing in your art?
Yeah, there's a thought in that question. So I think in terms of deciding what you want to do, I would research and take some classes. There's a lot of really good online courses in terms of skills that you can pick up, and also local classes. I would do that because it seems like what Melissa is talking about is twofold. One, not knowing what she would want to do. And so I think the first part is to figuring out what you want to do, because you definitely don't want to put a lot of money in a lot of different things. I think you should put the money in the thing that you love to do. So first is, let's figure out what you love to do. And then, this is funny, it's like you don't have to have all the supplies and everything right away. You don't have to have sort of the studio set up and just, I got to have everything. I'm very much start small, start with a couple of things, get your basic supplies. So like, for example, for painting, I found I didn't need that much paint because, hey, I learned how to mix colors. So now I can create all the colors. So yeah, I think just being really intentional about seeing what you really, really need once you figure out the direction that you really, really want to go in. And then from there, you can expand. But then also, I guess I thought about one other thing. See if there's some local schools, arts organizations, etc. See if they've got supplies. Sometimes they have extra supplies, supply sales. Start there. But once you do invest, spend the money on good quality products.
I really appreciate the way you broke that down, because I think I feel most of this pain. I am an aspirational investor. I get this idea in my head that I'm going to be like all of these things, and I'll decide that I'm going to do juices, and I'll buy a really expensive juicer and get all these recipe books. And then I'll decide I'm going to get into yoga. And then all of a sudden I'm buying all these expensive yoga clothes. So I definitely feel her pain. And it's hard because the beginning part of any new endeavor is always the most exciting, when you're just, everything is possible, right? This could be the thing. And then when you get into it, as you said, even with your own painting, it can be a little uncomfortable in the beginning when you realize how much you don't know and how long it's going to take before you do know. So to your point about taking lessons and taking classes and kind of starting small with the investment, I think the nice thing about a class is it kind of creates that commitment. And so you kind of had that 6-week commitment to try it out. And so if you invest in something small, whether it's a class and some basic supplies, at least then you have kind of had enough time to let it breathe. And it's not like me investing in a yoga outfit and going to one class and being like, ugh.
Yeah, I need to invest in the yoga class too. Maybe one day.
Well, I went twice this month, so that's I used to go all the time, and I actually want to get yoga certified. And in order to do that, I need to start taking classes again. And I got Pilates certified in high school, actually. I've never used that. And I want to get yoga certified now, but you have to have a teacher to recommend you for a course. And so you have to go somewhere enough times that someone is willing to recommend you. But 2 times a month is not going to cut it. I'm going to be 50 before someone recommends me.
You're getting there, though.
So
you're getting there.
I appreciate, I see that smile and that look of encouragement. I'm feeling it. Well, I went today. So today I'm feeling it. Well,
was that the second time of the month, or was it 2 times before that?
No, this is the second time of the month.
Okay.
I was supposed to go 10 times this month. The month kind of flew by. I snuck this last class in just so I could say I went twice.
Yeah, I hear that.
It happens. We're just doing the best we can,
That's all it really is.
So before I let you go, what is the best way for people to follow you and learn more about your art and what you're up to?
Yeah, so I can be found on Instagram at hello, Allison Art. And that's Allison with 2 L's. It's my first name. And my website is www.helloallisonart.com. And you can learn more about me and some press and projects that I've worked on, local art shows, all that, keep on my website, as well as a shop where you can view available pieces and hopefully leave inspired and happy.
I love that. Thank you so much for being a part of the project and sharing your story here with us today.
Thank you so much, Akoma. I've enjoyed talking to you so much.
Thanks so much for listening. And if you got value out of this episode and you think there's someone else who might enjoy it, I'd love for you guys to share. And if you have any questions for me, please head over to the website at thehappylawyerproject.com and you can leave me a voicemail right on the website. When you get there, you'll see a little tab on the right hand of the screen and you can click on it and leave a voicemail there. I absolutely love hearing from you guys. Last but not least, if you enjoy this podcast and you like the content that I'm bringing to you guys and you haven't done so already, I would really encourage you guys to head over to Apple Podcasts and leave me a rating and review. That's all for this week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening.